We've spent over 10 years on air, shaping a generation of action motorsports, and now we're changing the game again. The best motorsports, the best action sports, and the best of pop culture with some epic guests thrown in. I am Jim Beaver, and this is the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. Grab the popcorn. Welcome to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show here. We have a very special edition of this show. This is going to be our Christmas Shenanigans edition. I have absolutely no idea what the hell we're going to talk about. Probably our Motorsports Christmas wish list, along with some of the worst damn toys on the planet that have ever been given out for Christmas, and who knows where the hell this is going to go. But, yeah, we've got Jim Beaver here, my good friends Chris Leone and Matt Kalish. Is it Matt or is it Matthew? I've seen him both ways, Matt. What the hell do you like to be called publicly?
Oh, just call me Matt. It's easier. It's hard to Google. It's the one I go with.
Okay, we got that. I actually think, Chris, you've been on the show a billion times at this point. Matt, I think we're actually, this is your first appearance ever, right?
Oh, yeah. First time, long time, Jim.
Okay. Well, shit. We've only known each other for almost a decade, and we're finally getting you on the show. So, okay. All right. Well, we're going to take a short commercial break. We come back. Shenanigans are going to ensue here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. General Tire delivers for whatever life brings your way. General Tire's Grabber X3 all-season mud terrain tire offers aggressive styling and is engineered for durability with innovative performance features that are ready to carry you through extreme mud, dirt, and rock-covered terrain. For extreme traction that's ready for anything and rugged styling to match, look no further than the Grabber X3. General Tire delivers. Check out GeneralTire.com today. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show.
Conditions off the pavement are always changing, so why settle for a light bar that just turns on and off? The Rigid Adapt is a revolutionary new light bar that will automatically select from 8 beam patterns that range from a widespread 90-degree flood to a 15-degree spot based on your vehicle's speed. Try that with your knockoff light bar. A dash-mounted controller allows the user to toggle between adaptive mode, beam patterns, and RGBW accent lighting. With Adapt, it's easier than ever to own the night.
Dig what you're hearing? Well, do us a favor. Head over to Apple Podcasts and rate, review, and subscribe to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone and catch all of our back episodes. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. Getting things started here with our Christmas Shenanigans edition. Those of you just tuning in, by the way, we do have some really cool stuff we're dropping over the holidays. Next week, we have a special that I did with the Speed Freaks. Kenny and Crash and myself, yes, the legendary Speed Freaks. We sat down in Phoenix. We had a film crew on hand. We recorded an hour-and-a-half long show. We also, filmed it, so it's going to drop in the RSS feed next week. Then it will also be on YouTube, Facebook. We've got some cool reels that come out of it. Trust me, Kenny, Crash, drinking and talking motorsports and life and everything else. It gets pretty bananas at some point. So, yes, something you guys want to tune into. That'll be dropping next week in our RSS feed as well as on the website, JimBeaver15.com. So, formalities out of the way. Chris, Matt, we're supposed to talk Christmas. I think the best way to break this thing wide open, and you guys have absolutely no idea what we're going to talk about today, and I had this idea we needed to do a Christmas show for some stupid reason. Our Motorsports Christmas wish list. If you could come up with one or two things that you wanted to see in the new year for motorsports, either changed or fresh or whatever, let's get into it that way. I think that's the way to get things rolling here. I will give you my number one to get things rolling. The number one thing I would like to see in motorsport in 2023, guys, I want to be able to go to the F1 Grand Prix in Las Vegas without having to get a loan. So, yes, I want affordable tickets and an affordable hotel room, and I want to be able to go watch F1 in Las Vegas without it costing 5 figures. So that's number one on my list.
What decade is this, Jim? Because you might have to go time travel back to the 80s to pull that one off.
Yeah. Well, I will just say that when it's cheaper for me to go to the Monaco Grand Prix than the Las Vegas Grand Prix that's 2 hours away, we have a freaking problem, guys. I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. What I think I saw a report somewhere that GA tickets were up above $500 just to walk around, not even have a seat. What?
Yeah, I thought it was. I'd heard it over $1,000 or something for like a weekend pass. It was like $1,000, $1,500. Like you said, they didn't give you a seat. That just means you can walk around and say you were there.
Oh man, it's got to be like going to Disneyland, right? Like you go there, you don't get a seat. What's like a stadium butt cushion cost $100? Do they even have those? Is that I don't know. Are those not classy enough? Are those too NASCAR for F1? Who knows?
Matt, you know a thing or two about Disneyland right now, don't you?
Oh yeah. I just got back from a 2-day Disneyland trip. So
I actually love Disneyland personally. Like I literally my lifelong on my bucket list is going to Club 33 at some point, just because of the novelty of it, and I know how exclusive and tough it is to get in there. So that's on my long-term, lifelong bucket list, by the way.
Oh, I passed the front door for it. It is very cool looking. It doesn't even have a handle. Like, you cannot open that door on your own.
Yeah, I've got my picture taken at the front door, but that's about it. Like I've never been inside.
What is it? It's called Club 33 because you literally need to spend $33,000
I can't
get in.
No, I think it was Club 33 because there was like 33 original investors in Disneyland. And like Coca-Cola and you know, Coca-Cola runs deep with Disney, like literally back to the beginning. But I think like the history of it, there's like 33 original investors in Disneyland. And so Walt Disney, when he created it, he created this exclusive club for the original 33 so they could come to the park, have a place to have drinks, escape, things like that. So I think is something along those lines is how it was created way back when, was for the 33 original investors. And now it's become like – it's like this secret club that everybody knows about, but nobody can get into because it's, like you said, I don't know what. Last I saw, it was like a $25,000 initiation fee, and then you have like a $10,000 a year membership. But just because you have a membership doesn't mean you still get in the club. You can only go to the club like a couple, like 4 times a year or something like that. Like it's like absurd, the costs. And I think it's like corporate clients and then people like, I know Johnny Depp's a member. I read something. And it was only because part of his deal with the Pirates of the Caribbean, when he did the original Jack Sparrow, he wrote that into his contract with Disney. Okay, I will be Jack Sparrow, but I want paid XXX, and I want a Club 33 membership. So it was it's that tough to get in when Johnny Depp has to write it into contracts with Disney.
Oh, man, good on him, though. That's a smart way to do it.
So
can I just say I am almost 33 and I have never even heard of this.
Oh, so, Chris,
man, the kind of pleb that I am. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a Disney person. I don't do that. I mean, I don't think I've watched the Disney movies since I was like 8 or 9, and I mean, I struggle through an episode of Aqua Teen Hunger Force these days. What do you want from me?
Yeah. Oh man, you're not a Disney person. You couldn't even watch a race at Walt Disney World Speedway. Just so anti-Disney.
Yeah. Star Wars, Chris? You Star Wars at all?
I was never really the biggest. I just liked race cars. That is all I cared about as a kid. And then I got turned on to the Tony Hawk games.
Pod racing, Chris. Do you like? I mean, like pod racing at all? Like that one clip from I guess probably the shittiest Star Wars movie that they ever made, but that was like the cool takeaway was like.
I think I have the N64 game for that downstairs, and I just cannot race in 3 dimensions. You just gotta keep me mostly in 2. I can do jumps and off-road and rallycross stuff, but fully in the air and having to go up and down as well as front and back, left and right, it doesn't compute. Do not let me ever fly a plane.
Chris is a world champion in RC Pro-Am from the NES, by the way. He can only race in 2 dimensions. Rad Racer, Chris? We go back to Rad Racer on the original Nintendo?
I think you've named about the one system that I don't have. I even found an Intellivision at a Salvation Army for free once. Like,
you don't have an NES? You have the NES Classic?
No, that's like I said. That's about the one gap. But you gotta have something.
Yeah.
All right, you gotta have something.
Mhm.
I have you guys by almost a decade, so it's like, right at a decade. I turned 42 next week, so it's like, NES was like, that gets into one of my Christmas presents. So we'll get it. Well, I think we need to go down the rabbit hole later on in the show. We got to bring it back here. So yes, F1 tickets. Being affordable, that was number one on my list. Let's go to you, Matt. What do you got on your wish list for motorsports next year?
Well, this one actually hits a little close to home. So Formula E is coming to Portland. I live in Portland. It's coming to Portland next year. And my motorsport wish list is an electric racing series that isn't a gimmick. And I'm kind of getting that a little bit with NRX, but I want like a Formula style road race that doesn't have like fan boost and Mario Kart style like speed arrows on the grounds. I just want a good racing series that isn't a joke with electric cars.
They lost me originally, and I actually appreciate Formula E. I truly do, because there's some talented drivers in there. But they lost me when you had to switch cars. I was just like, no, I want something where you've got to race the same car the whole time. Like back in the beginning when they did
from day one is what you're saying.
What's that? Yeah, pretty much. When they go, we're going to switch cars midway through the race, I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, I went to the Formula E race the first year they had it in Brooklyn. And I just remember being bored out of my mind, and I cannot think of another racing product. Like, I went to GRC races where half the day they were fixing a track, and I was not bored. I go to Formula E, and they don't have a single support series there. It's just, and I don't think the situation's changed much since then. So I just go there. There's like an hour and a half of racing in an 8-hour day. I just don't know what to do, and I don't like it. I wish they could do something to fix that. And they're a world racing series. They have the money for it.
Yeah, so. Extreme E is the same way. I was like, Extreme E, and like I tuned in on the very first race on Fox, and I have friends that are racing over there, and I appreciate Extreme E for what they're trying to do. But it was like I tuned in, and it was like, this is amazing. I'm like, have you seen Pro Forza Crandon? Have you seen a trophy truck in the desert? I'm like, if you think this is amazing, let me show you what us in the United States have been playing with for the last 3 decades. I'm like, because trophy trucks and Pro 4s or Pro 2s just blow this completely out of the water. I'm like, if you think this is impressive, let me show you this. And it's like I'm like, why is Ganassi and Extreme E? Own a trophy truck, own a Pro 4 program chip. Like, why are you doing this?
Well, I'll tell you, Jim, and it's kind of based on the GRC experience. I think Ganassi is there because for them, it is a branding exercise and one where they don't need to invest a lot of financial or, frankly, effort capital into actually managing that. I mean, that is the one kind of upside with XC being managed the way it is, where there's a lot of, because it's spec and, you see some of the people in. I mean, can you imagine Lewis Hamilton or Nico Rosberg doing the day-to-day operations of a race team right now? No, of course not. But, based on the Ganassi GRC experience, where it was really Steve Arpin and Lowenbro doing just about everything, and Ganassi basically just slapping a name on it and being an asset in that and some shop space, that is the level of time and effort that I think they're willing to put into programs outside of their core competency. I mean, Christ, like, look at you sell off your NASCAR team. Like, that to me, I think that makes an even larger statement about that organization as a whole.
So for those to catch everybody up, Chris just said Extreme E is the real-world equivalent of eNASCAR. It's just a branding exercise for us all. Tell me I'm wrong, Chris. Tell me I'm wrong.
I mean, I'm not going to tell you that. I am going to tell you that XC is, I think, a very good gateway drug for people who are not familiar with North American off-road racing to kind of get into it and, learn the sport a little bit, learn some of the names that matter in off-road racing that they may not know about, obviously seeing Tanner and Emma Gilmore with McLaren have some success, has been a positive. Having multiple American teams has been a positive. I think RJ Anderson even got called in to sub for Kyle LeDuc at Ganassi at one point.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the coolest parts. Everybody globally kind of knows who Tanner is. I appreciate Ganassi for what they did. I mean, Sarah Price, Sarah's a good friend of the show. She's a very good friend of mine. They took Sarah Price and put her on a global scale, so now everybody in the world knows who Sarah Price is. And the same with Kyle LeDuc and now RJ Anderson. I appreciate what Ganassi did. It wasn't the Haas Formula One experiment where they go, all right, we're an American team and we're going to hire all Europeans and then we're going to get pissed off because the Americans don't support us. Ganassi goes, all right, we're going to go to this fairly European-based thing and, we're going to bring Americans along for the ride. I thought that was awesome. McLaren obviously bringing Tanner in. Tanner's a global talent. Everybody knows who Tanner is, but I appreciate that. Like, I completely appreciate what Ganassi has. We have an American team. Andretti's is a marketing exercise. He's got, somebody else running it, and they've got some amazing talent, that are actually friends of mine. So I'm not going to knock what Andretti did, but I appreciate what Ganassi did by bringing American talent to an American team on a global scale. Like, tip of the cap to Chip for that, because a lot of people and a lot of teams wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and yeah, you look at, obviously, the Andretti lineup, and we know Timmy Hansen is one of the best drivers in the world as an example, but yeah, also not an American pick, a pick that they took out of World Rallycross. I mean, it's kind of funny considering the drivers that Andretti ran with in GRC the whole time, where Tanner is now in that series with a different team, and Scott Speed is kind of on the sidelines right now, in that when NRX made the move to electric, he was going to be the guy that was kind of kept behind on the supercar side with Subaru, because he's had that deal with the manufacturer directly, but hasn't had a place to race this year as a result. So, definitely credit to, what Ganassi was willing to do on that end, to bring in Sarah, to bring in Kyle, and then when Kyle, I guess, was unavailable for that last race, to bring in RJ, because those are names that, if you're not sold on XE, and especially if you're looking at it through the technical side, where I think we have more robust vehicle builds, in a lot of ways here in America, at least those are names that legitimize it. I think it says something when and Jim, in your case, where you had been a trophy truck driver for a very long time and moved into the UTVs, that's a legitimizing force for UTV racing. Is, hey, this is somebody who has been running at that level for a long time that is willing to pivot his program because he has faith in this form of racing, Yeah. And I think having Sarah sign on, Kyle sign on, RJ be willing to step in on Ganassi's end, that is absolutely a legitimizing force here in North America for that.
Yeah, and I think, and truthfully, for Extreme E and the television package and everything else, it brought the American audience, because if Kyle and Sarah weren't racing there, or now RJ and Sarah, you wouldn't have any Americans tuning in. It would be like Formula One 5-6 years ago. Nobody cared, Yeah. I guess my one wish, and I won't make this one of my motorsports wish lists, but I look at a guy, and granted he's older, but he has accomplished everything he could possibly accomplish in off-road in both short course and desert racing. And he's also won NASCAR truck races. I'm like, could you imagine Rob McCachran in Extreme E and what that talent and that knowledge base could do? Like, I would love to see Rob McCachran there battling with, the best of the best in the world, who we've got in Extreme E. Like, to me, that's like, wow, how's one of these teams not called Rob McCachran, who is largely considered the GOAT? I'm like, God, I would love to see Rob for a season in Extreme E.
Yeah, I agree. I think Rob would be awesome to watch. Or even, Caden is coming up the ladder pretty quickly, and he's starting to get experience in some of the, in some of the big trucks and everything. And, that's somebody who long-term I think would be, a great fit for that series. But yeah, generally speaking, I think XE is a much more effective use of the concept than Formula E. I think as off-road people, we're a little more, into the granular details of it, because we know where we can improve efficiencies. We know one way in particular where we have seen the efficiencies improved between, the three of us. And that has obviously been Envision taking over as the wheel supplier. But to an audience that doesn't know that the way that we know that, it's a much more compelling product at what it does, I think.
Yeah, it's
and
yep.
Go ahead, Matt.
So yeah, just kind of jumping off that, it's like they've done the equivalent to Pro 4. You know how Pro 4 is basically like some guy said, let's take a trophy truck and run it on a smaller, more intimate course. Extreme E, outside of everything else, is basically that equivalent, but for Dakar.
Yeah.
And that concept is incredible. The places they go are incredible. The things that immediately hook my eye. Like, they're racing in Greenland, they're racing in Senegal, they're racing in all of these absolutely stunning locations, and the photos that come out of Extreme E and the videos are it's some of the best in the world. Like, you cannot repeat that experience. And I just wish it's hard when you have this genuinely cool product that's just overshadowed by this big, I don't know if it's genuine or not, but they're environmental messes that they're trying to push through. It just seems like that's what dominates the Extreme E marketing to me.
Yeah.
You get the driver sometimes, but it's like, guys, I get that you're trying to be green. Taking a giant, ship, which is your hotel to Greenland, to put on a racing series, that's not exactly the most environmentally friendly thing in the world, outside of every other factor. And I guess that's kind of what I mean, where it feels like every electric racing series, maybe barring NRX, feels like it has to have some kind of gimmick on top of it. It can't just be, this is a cool racing series, the cars are electric. And that's basically where my wish list item is coming from. I just want a good racing product to be what drives your series.
Yeah.
This is the double-edged sword of that, though. If that's not your message, you're not racing in those places. Just straight up. You're not going to Greenland or Senegal or any of the other places that XE has gone to if you're not justifying it by being a little heavy-handed in that marketing. So it's... I feel like you kind of have to take the good with the bad on that. Like, it's... other than that, I feel like with a product like that, what's the niche? If you're not setting yourself apart in that way, yeah, it's fantastic that the drivers that they've gotten to get on board, but I almost wonder, would this look remotely like the same series in teams, in drivers, in anything, if there wasn't such a heavy-handed... I don't think you can... I don't know if you can reconcile that. I don't know if you can make that series exist without doing specifically that. And that's kind of where I think the challenge is. Because otherwise, I think if you're North American, it's, all right, well, why don't I just race short course or race, full-on desert races like the Baja or Vegas to Reno or the Mint or any of those? I think if you're European, I think it becomes, well, why don't I just race Dakar or W2RC? And you look at those things, and none of the operations that are involved with XE are involved in any of those things, and I think there's a reason for that. I don't think that any of that really suits their goals, but in this case, where you do have that heavy-handed message, it becomes, again, kind of a gateway into off-road. I don't know that it's going to justify, suddenly Andretti having this big trophy truck program that goes barnstorming throughout, Score or any of the other series, but I do think that it's what got them into the space, and I don't think they get into that space in particular without it.
That's a fair point, because I hadn't considered it from that perspective before. Because you're ultimately right. We're not talking about teams that genuinely have run Dakar desert racing before. Some of the drivers have, and I'm glad they're pulling in that experience. But that's fair. I guess I might need to reevaluate that one.
Yeah, my worry about Extreme E, and I'll be honest with you, and I actually, I appreciate the series exists. I appreciate what it's done for some drivers. Let's go back to the GRC thing. There was a peak there where GRC had the best action sports and motorsports drivers in the world. They had all these all these auto manufacturers involved, had this banger TV package, and had these super teams, Ganassi, Andretti. I mean, everybody was looking at getting involved in rallycross here in the States. And fast forward, the series collapsed. And I look at this and go, is this sustainable? You've got everybody in the globally, and you've got their attention. You've got these drivers. You've got these super teams. Is the ROI there for this series to continue to exist? Because I've seen what it costs to be involved in Extreme E. It is not cheap. We're talking a 8-figure investment to have a team. And I'm looking at that going, okay, is this sustainable? Is this sustainable? Because I know what it costs to run an IndyCar, and I know what it costs to run Extreme E, and Extreme E is a lot more expensive than an IndyCar. So does this series continue to exist?
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I will say is having the spec vehicle and having, that is an asset that GRC did not have. I mean, there are a lot of factors behind the scenes with the collapse of GRC in that era of rallycross that were never truly covered. And this is not the place to get super in depth with them. We'll do that someday. We've always said we will. But the fact of the matter is, when you have manufacturer-backed racing and you have a bunch of competitive people in that, and when you have one brand that is able to devote a ton more resources and other brands that are more legacy brands directly in that sport that have their pride wounded because they are no longer as competitive, you create an arms race until the accountants catch up. There is an extent to which I feel like XE can be insulated from that, whether it actually is or not, that it at least can be set up in that way. And I think that is one of the key lessons that NRX learned in having the FC1X essentially be a spec vehicle. I know they've talked about being able to add manufacturer diversity with body types and things of that nature, but, this actually leads into the top of my Christmas wish list, and this is the unrealistic $1 million and a pony kind of wish, but just more competence in general from the leadership of Racing Series. I know I'm asking for the world. I know I'm not going to get it, but it feels like up and down the line, there are a lot of places that have really not grasped that. I mean, F1 and NASCAR seem to be the best, and granted, the decision making's not perfect in either of those. We talked about the F1 tickets. There are definitely things that NASCAR hasn't gotten perfect with regards to the next gen. Obviously, that car having some safety issues is something that they've had to go work out. But I mean, there has been a lot of ink, spilled over IndyCar's issues with marketing, and they have gone very, very deep. And even down to like the less serious and more kind of entertainment based level. I mean, I struggle to piece together what a stadium super truck schedule is every year at this point. Like, it's where the hell are they racing? And you find out maybe 3 weeks beforehand that they're going to get added to the undercard of something. The SRX thing, which I hammered very hard during that season, because a very basic race control thing that they didn't bother to communicate in any meaningful way ended up being the difference between who won the championship and who lost it. And that, from a communication standpoint, is unacceptable. There is no way around that. If you're not going to take that seriously, even if it's an entertainment series, there is no point in tracking it if you can't bother to just put a footnote on a points document. I mean, certainly we've all had our experiences in the stage rally world, and I know there have been some major changes to ARA regulations at the top. And, just before we got on here, I was reading, some comments from David Higgins about, I appreciate the spirit, but I don't think they've gone far enough in what they're trying to do. And we have all certainly had our issues with how North American stage rally has been run since we were all first introduced to it, I think. And it just, there seems to be a lot of across the board, just really, really big gaps, in things that can be done a lot better than they're currently, being done. And just basic fundamental things. We're not talking super nuanced, how this is the pacing of this, 9-figure Hollywood film that we've invested in. This is the plot of that. No, we're talking, I mean, again, I just identified two of the most basic fundamental things of a racing series, which is where are we racing and who is leading the championship. That's literally the 101 of what we do if it's a racing series that is supposed to matter in any sort of meaningful way.
Well, I'd actually add a third thing to that list, and I'd add, what are we racing? Just
Also
jumping off of IndyCar.
The ARA.
Right, and not just ARA, but also IndyCar. You mentioned their marketing, but what are we racing in IndyCar? Like, for the last couple of years, they've talked about a new series or a new chassis. They've talked about hybrid power units. They've talked about bringing in a third manufacturer. Yeah. And it feels like over the last 6 months, it's just been kind of a steady walk back from all of those things. And what are we supposed to keep doing in that series? Are we supposed to keep racing a chassis that's pushing 15 years old? I just like I know they've updated the bodywork, but fundamentally that car really, like, the bones of it haven't changed all that much.
Yeah, you're not wrong
there.
And I think, yeah,
I was just going to say I agree with you. Well, and I think in regards to IndyCar, it's like, it's funny because they have this double-edged sword where you look at lap times around, say, COTA, and the Europeans completely bash IndyCar. Look how much slower they are than a Formula One car. It's two different disciplines, but, then you get people go, yeah, but the IndyCar drivers are actually driving the car. So you've got this dated chassis where the drivers actually, I truly think IndyCar is a much better equalizer in regards to figuring out who's a better driver than Formula One. Formula One's just, if you drive for the top three teams, you're you know what I mean? Absolutely. You're going to be infinitely more successful. There's, we look at, gosh, why am I thinking, Magnussen, Haas driver, when he qualified on the pole, whatever. Like, here's a guy where if you put him in a Red Bull car, no doubt the guy's going to be a top 3 guy. You know what I mean? Yeah. But he's just, for whatever reason, he's just never going to be that. But I feel like you throw him in an Indy car and give him a season, he's going to be up front, regardless of whether he's driving for a crummy team or not. I feel like IndyCar gives a better shot for a lousy driver to still do well. Now, granted, if you're in, a Ganassi car, an Andretti car, or one of the McLaren cars, you're going to have a better shot. But I still think, you know what I mean? In the case of Zach Veach, it still didn't pencil out to having success. But you got guys that, Sebastian Bourdais, here's a guy who made lemonade out of lemons every single weekend the last couple of years of his career. He was driving stuff that was very subpar, but he was a great driver, and he was still producing. So I feel like I don't want to lose that with IndyCar. If they make a new chassis, I think they need to somehow conserve that, because I love the fact that on any given weekend anybody can win an IndyCar.
So the IndyCar formula is actually it's pretty simple. They're wing cars, but they don't run high downforce packages, and they make the cars purposely a little tough to drive. So like they don't have power steering. That's the really famous point.
Yep.
But also, for the record, IndyCar is slower than F1. IndyCar is not slow. Those cars still, around COTA, they run equivalent times to somewhere around LMP1, LMP2, somewhere in the middle of there. Yep. So it's it's not like they're slow vehicles, and they take a ton of work to drive. And to put it in like gamer terms, the skill ceiling is supremely high in IndyCar. Just because of the amount of effort it takes, because of the amount of work it takes to dial in the setups. So but the point is, Jim, there's nothing about what IndyCar currently is that cannot continue with a new chassis. And for one, I was really excited to see hybrid power units in IndyCar. I know a lot of people weren't, but
no, they're
I wanted it. I wanted it just because IndyCar is all about giving drivers tools in their toolbox. And a hybrid power unit is another tool. It's another bit of strategy that they need to manage. And it makes the drivers think more. And that's ultimately what makes IndyCar good for me. Because you're right, it's not about the chassis. It's not like F1. It's about the driver. And so you give the driver more to do, there are more chances for interesting storylines to develop in races. And it's a real bummer to me that we're not getting those updates to kind of bring in those new technologies and bring in more ways for the drivers to approach things, for the drivers to diversify. IndyCar is one of the few series where you don't have to be insanely smooth to be fast. Like, you can ride the ragged edge in IndyCar. You can saw at the wheel, and you can get speed out of them that way. You're a little harder on your tires, but you're not necessarily going to be off the pace just because you have a different driving style. But yeah, there's nothing about that can't be preserved in a new car, and bringing in new technologies, new things to give the drivers more to do.
All right.
No, for sure. I mean, the one thing that I will also say about some of the announcements that were walked back, I mean, those who remember the kind of demos of GRC will probably remember the Gold and Platinum series press releases that were put out of which ended up getting massively misinterpreted because it ended up making it look like GRC kicked all of its race teams out, and that's what led to ARX, which could not have been further from how anything actually went down. But I mean, I looked at the press release that they put out in talking about that, and they talked about all the different sustainability things, and they just kind of buried it in there. And I had that same kind of sinking lipstick on a pig feeling, for lack of a better term, when I read the release, when they kind of put that stuff in, where they were trying to trump up something big, and exciting, and like, it sounds good, and it's like, no, we screwed up. Like, we failed here. I mean, I loved the idea of the 2.4 liter V6 in part because you're chasing that third manufacturer, and lo and behold, Toyota, a company with an extensive and successful open wheel racing history, first in kart and then later in the IRL before it reverted back to the IndyCar branding, has a 2.4 liter V6 that it had just run in the LMP1 class. That felt tailor-made for, and especially based on what you said, Matt, about not, times not being all that far off, something that could have, I don't want to broad stroke it too much and call it completely plug and play, but would have at least served, I think, as a decent basis to really get the ball past the 50-yard line and put you in scoring position, and to essentially get there and still end up having to punt the ball and just say we're going to retrofit the hybrid stuff to the engines that exist that nobody besides Chevy and Honda in the world build, unless you want to go mothball, an uncompetitive Lotus engine from 10 years ago. Like, yeah, that was immensely disappointing. Like, the racing is still good, but we know there's potential to be better. And in that classic, it seems like age-old description of IndyCar, yeah, we're just not doing it.
All right, I think it's time to take a short commercial break. We come back, Christmas Shenanigans, reigniting those right here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. General Tire offers a wide variety of options that are designed to deliver for whatever life brings your way. Whether you have a truck, car, or SUV, General Tire delivers for whatever you drive. From the long-lasting all-season Altimax RT43 to the aggressive all-terrain Grabber ATX, General Tire covers on-road performance, off-road capability, and durability. General Tire delivers. For more information, drive over to GeneralTire.com. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show. Don't just shred your way through any off-road rugged terrain. Get into gear with GSP XTV and let us redefine your adventure. The GSP advantage of quality and performance sets a standard for UTV axles. We strive to provide premium ATV and UTV axles to keep you shreddy ready. Kick up some dirt and get in the driver's seat with GSP XTV. With over 35 years of experience, drive with a company you can trust. Drive with GSP. For more information, please visit us at gspxtv.com today. When looking for a new wheel for your off-road vehicle, car, truck, or UTV, the choice is easy. You choose what the pros use. Rob McCachran, Keegan Kincaid, and myself, Jim Beaver, all exclusively use Vision Wheel, whether we're dominating Baja, taking the cup at Crandon, or shredding UTVs. Vision Wheel's trend-setting designs and durability will set you apart from the competition and your friends. Check out visionwheel.com or at Vision Wheel on social media to learn more.
Life is all about sound, the sound of sports, the sound of the racetrack, and the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Social media? Yeah, we've got that. Jim Beaver 15 on all major platforms, and Jim Beaver Show, JB15 Group, and B Cardone 15 on the gram. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. Jim here along with Chris and Matt, and we just got done talking about some of our motorsports wish lists. All right, I will. Let's switch it up a little bit. All right, so Formula One aside, if you can go to one motorsport event in 2023 and you getting tickets to it this Christmas, what's it going to be, Matt?
To be perfectly honest, I think it's got to be Dakar. I just, you guys know this obviously, but I'm a photographer. I love getting out. I love shooting. That's part of what really drew me into stage rally in the first place when I started working with Rally America back in the day. But Dakar is just it's almost the ultimate show for that, right? It's like
the scenery is amazing.
Oh man, the scenery is amazing. You're just following an event for like days and days and days.
See, that's where Matt's smart. So Chris and I are going to give our picks, and we're like wanting a weekend away. Matt's like, nah, hell no, I want 2 weeks off. So Matt's smart. Matt's like, 1 weekend? Hell no, I want 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. We really gotta. You know, it's 2 weeks. I may be seeing the cars twice a day, but
Yeah.
you know, it's just. It's got to be immensely fun. I've been meaning to shoot a desert race for a really long time, and I know we've talked about that, Jim.
Yeah, it's going to happen this
year. I want to
year.
get out. Yeah, it's wild. It's honestly, it's either that or I'm sorry, I'm going to give you two answers. I'm just going to break the whole flow of this, but
that's all right.
I really want Targa Newfoundland to come back.
Okay.
Yeah, I know that's kind of an out there one. It was struggling a little bit before COVID and before the lockdowns, just with participation. But Targa Newfoundland, for those that don't know, it's basically a stage rally that does a circumnavigation of Newfoundland, like the whole region over the course of a week, and it's all on tarmac, and they get crazy cars that show up. They used to get hundreds of cars. I don't know what they get now, but Again, it's kind of the same thing. It's gorgeous scenery. Like you're out on shorelines, you're in the woods. So it's I just think I want to get outside and spend a ton of time outside. That's my motorsports wish.
All right, Chris, shoot, buddy. Where are you going if you got tickets?
Well, I feel like it's cheating on the question to say Pikes Peak because I am already planning to go do my first Pikes Peak hill climb next summer. Really looking forward to that. It's still kind of sketching out the details a little bit, but I have always wanted the thrill of showing up at the mountain at 3 a.m. and just kind of the ultimate test that is. But other than that, oh geez, I don't know. You know, I am often guilty of, in things like this, very much thinking within my box and thinking things that are very easily accessible to me. I will say the Nitro Rallycross event in Calgary, the Calgary one specifically, because they're going to do back-to-back ice races. They're going to do Trois Rivières in January, and then they're going to do Calgary in February. But just such an unexpected place, I think, to go put a race. I mean, Trois Rivières GP3R is a long-standing historical, motorsports event with a lot of history and a lot of success and a lot of different things that it's done and done well. And that's fantastic. And obviously that's that is going to be a fun, exciting addition to the history of that. But you show up in a place that just you don't expect. To me, it's the same kind of compelling force that made me think GRC Barbados was so cool. Like, how many...
That was cool, though. That was cool. Yeah. I give you credit for that. That was an awesome event. I mean, I don't know that it would be on my bucket list, but it was cool.
Yeah. Like, if you know about Barbados's just full-on embrace of motorsport and some of the cool cars that are there, the WRC spec cars that go there, some of the WRC drivers that even run that event, or have run that event in the past. But to me, just the ice race, where they're putting it in the city, it's just, to me, it's that same kind of video game vibe that I think we all, that we just talked about earlier with the Extreme E locations, where it feels like something that's ripped straight out of a game that you wouldn't expect to happen in the real world. And I think that's going to be special. And obviously the fact that they'll have run 2 weeks prior in Quebec also helps, because you'll have dialed it in a little bit. You'll have gotten used to the cars on ice. So I think regardless of what either of the tracks look like, you're going to get a better product the second time out, because you're going to have been able to learn things in a racing situation that you wouldn't necessarily have been able to learn in testing and when things have been competitive. So that would probably be the one. I guess I'd need to get my passport renewed for that one, because I think the expiry from X Games Brazil is like right on the doorstep for me. But yeah, I think that would be mine.
Yeah. Well, I think mine, I don't know. One's going to be, I said we couldn't pick the U.S. Formula One race. Well, I guess the one of three at this point. But I'm going to say I've always wanted to go to the Monaco Grand Prix. So that's got to be on there. Not because it's the greatest spectacle in all of racing or anything like that. Like, literally, I've just wanted to go because it's been a bucket list. So I would definitely say going there would be one of them. I would say, just from a sheer interest standpoint, I got to say Isle of Man, though. I would love to go to Isle of Man and watch the videos. You want to talk about scenery and craziness, like the videos of the guys at 200 miles an hour just jumping their bikes, you know what I mean, on these long distance jumps and things like that, because they're going so fast. And just the sketchy risk factor, I feel like that would be a spectacle to watch, Isle of Man. So I got to throw Isle of Man on my list, because at some point before I die, I want to go to Isle of Man and watch that race, because to me, it's just, you want to talk about the most insane motorsports event globally every year, that's got to be on the top of the list. Yeah, I mean, just the risk factor, the sheer death factor, and the fact that these guys are the most talented motorcycle riders on the planet, and they're just laying it down. Like, it's got to be Isle of Man for me.
Oh yeah, and honestly, Jim, let's be honest here. How many more times are they going to be able to run that event?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, that's another one.
Safety yeah, it's.
I agree with you there, and I didn't even think
honestly
about
worry
it.
about it.
Yeah. There's going to be a year where they just go, yeah, nope, we're done. It's kind of like, it's even like Pikes Peak, like, yes, Pikes Peak still happens. Pikes Peak, I don't want to say is of no interest to me anymore. It's very diluted because, running on tarmac versus dirt up that mountain, it kind of diminished the interest for me. A little bit of the risk went away. Like, I don't know, so it's even events like that are still going on are a shell of their former self. I mean, Mount Washington, we don't, I call it the redheaded stepchild of Pikes Peak because it doesn't get its due and it's just as gnarly. But Mount Washington now is paved for the most part all the way up, and it's, I don't know. I feel like you're right. Isle of Man, existing in its current format, I don't know how much longer it's going to last, but I mean, I feel like any year we can see that press release where something changed or it's canceled or something like that, because just doing it the way they do it, holy crap, man, I can't believe it's still going on.
Well, there's an extent to which we're all action sports people, right? We've all, been very familiar with sort of the evolution and the progression. I mean, I think we can all remember back about 20 to 25 years ago when the backflip on a dirt bike was this sacred thing that, nobody had done before. And how would you even do it? And now it's like the most rudimentary part of any replacement level FMX rider's, repertoire.
Yeah.
And it's just, I mean, the thing is, obviously, with vehicle technology and stuff like that, that's how things get to evolve. And you have to kind of get to that point where it's like, well, are we chasing continued records or are we running it because we love it? And for some people, it's one thing, and for some people, it's another. And if you stop one, you can still have the other, but you're still in a sweet spot in technological evolution on some things at this point, where you have both, but it does become tougher to long-term justify when you're only able to do one. I'm not concerned that is an imminent thing, maybe not even necessarily in our lifetimes. I think that, and especially I think with the move to electric, because there is so much that needs to be learned still on being competitive in that, I think there's a lot of new life for a lot of different things, because we are reliving the early 1900s when they were figuring out how to make a car go fast in the first place. The timeline's not going to be quite as long, but we are in a lot of ways with the electric era, reliving that development. And it's part of the reason why I've always kind of been surprised at the people who have hated the electric era, because I'm like, look, this is the same thing that people did with gas cars back in what you call the heyday. It's just that they're faster now, and we have more resources that have come at the beginning. Like, if you're crying for the good old days, when there was still evolution, you're seeing it. What's the problem? Like, what's the problem there? Do you you hate the evolution specifically because it's electric, or and that's just never made sense to me.
Yeah. Well,
hey, fun fact though, about electric cars. The very first car to break 100 kilometers an hour was powered by electricity. The very first car to break 100 miles per hour powered by electricity.
Huh.
So we're talking about speed. We're talking about development of electric cars. They were literally there from the beginning, and they were some of the most high-performance machines of their era. Anyway, just fun aside. Wanted to jump in with that.
No, I learned something today.
I absolutely did too. And the thing is like I'm a fan of electric. Racing, like, I hope NHRA doesn't add an electric drag class, because NHRA, to me, it's all about the senses. And I think with electric you lose some of the senses, and that's one thing I love about NHRA is just the sensory overload when you go to a race and watch Funny Car Top Fuel. It's insane, and you can't even put it into perspective unless you're there. But electric, I appreciate the speed, the power, the torque. I mean, it's nuts. You know what I mean? And especially like with the hill climb stuff, like we've seen at Pikes Peak and things like that. Like, I appreciate what electric does. I mean, in the consumer sense, do I think it's the future? Yeah. Do I think it's the future in the next 5 years? No. I mean, California's got rolling blackouts as it is. We go and plug, 5 million cars in, a night, and, I guarantee you that electric grid's not going to handle it. I mean, I've got family members that work for Arizona Public Service that provide power to the entire state, and they're like, yeah, this is a problem if everybody in Arizona went to electric cars. We can't handle it, that we're going to have problems. So do I think it's the future? Yes. I think there's a lot, and I'm talking in the consumer sense, but racing, I feel like they're pushing that envelope. That's going to trickle down into consumer technology, things like that, and I think the biggest thing is battery life, and we've got to get better battery life out of these cars. Instead of being able to go 300-400 miles on a charge, we need these cars to be able to go, 700, 800, 1,000 miles, things like that, and that way you're not having to plug it in every night, things like that. But I am a fan of the technology and the speed that electric cars produce. I just, I'm not fully on board in a race sense quite yet. There's some hiccups there. I appreciate where things are going, though, and the series that are continuing to push the envelope and things like that. I want to bring something up, though. We talk about, future and stuff like that. I mean, what we're seeing, 2 instances just in the last couple months. I mean, this Super Motocross World Championship. Nobody ever thought that was going to happen. Now all of a sudden Supercross and motocross combined, and then they're running combined events at the end of the year, and they've got this crazy championship with all this money, and it's got every motorcycle manufacturer. You've got Triumph coming in now to run a program. Triumph doesn't even make a dirt bike, and they're going, 2024, we're all in. You got manufacturers going to create dirt bikes so they can go and be a part of this championship. We just had, Matt Martelli's and Dave Cole announce this crazy Triple Crown with the California 300, the Mint 400, and King of the Hammers, a points race for all three in the desert classes. Did that need to happen? No. I mean, they would have been highly successful on their own, but now you've got 2 juggernauts in the off-road space combining forces. You've got motocross and supercross, these juggernauts combining forces. I'm looking at things going, holy crap, are we going to see more of that in motorsport where these juggernauts are combining forces and giving the fans what the fans have always wanted? Color me interested. I'm signed up. I'm excited.
No, 100%. I mean, yeah, SMX is going to be a heck of a fun time. Definitely going back to LA Coliseum, all of that, certainly the combination of KOH and the Mint and the Cal 300, that's going to be a ton of fun. I think that 3 events is the minimum that you need for a good series as far as that goes, and so I'm pumped to see, ideally, entry caliber raising on every single one of those, and I think that'll be a lot of fun to watch. I don't know. I mean, it's very interesting the way this world keeps reshaping itself in motorsports of all types. And there's a lot of chaos, there's a lot of unpredictability, but there are a lot of cool things that people are breaking out of kind of the comfort zone and embracing and accepting. I mean, F1 in general being willing to embrace the United States the way it has been is a huge diversion from the past. The NASCAR moves, let's put a race in the stadium. Let's put a race on the streets of Chicago. Those have been, a big change. And even IndyCar, I will give credit to IndyCar for the Iowa race, because as cool as Iowa Speedway is as a track, it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, but now you book bona fide A-listers, and you are setting up a template for a meaningful event, which is, a festival, a big music festival that has car racing as a big, meaningful part of it. So we do have a lot of evolution still in that front, and I think there are still a lot of exciting things to come.
Yeah, what do I always say?
Honestly,
Adapt or die.
I kind of go back 10 years ago. And a lot of what's happening now kind of feels like what the IMSA Grand Am merger kind of was 10 years ago, where you had these two series, which were, ALMS Grand Am merger to make United Sports Car, which we just call IMSA now because United Sports Car is kind of a dumb name. But you had these two series, which legitimately on their own both had a fair amount of manufacturer support. They combined, there were a couple rough years afterwards, but IMSA they're on good footing now. They have a ton of manufacturers. They have two very successful series, and in a lot of senses, they are a premier road course series. Like IMSA gets talked about in the same vein as WEC. IMSA teams go and win their classes at Le Mans. Like it's, I genuinely hope we see that kind of success from everything that's been talked about right now. But
yeah,
I am firmly a believer that IMSA is the superior product, quite frankly.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's pretty telling that BMW comes in with their first top class car in 20 years, and they say, "Yeah, we're running Sebring. We're starting with IMSA."
Yeah,
like that's kind of all that needs to be said, right? It's not like they're starting at the Spa 24.
Yeah, that's true, and that is a meaningful car and a big partnership, and obviously as an iRacing guy, something that I was pumped to see on there, even if I can't drive it to save money.
All right. Well, we're going to take a short commercial break. We come back more. We're going to have our last big segment here on the Christmas show here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. Back after this. When it's time to replace the tires on your vehicle, General Tire delivers the tires you need for both your next big adventure and your daily commute. Whether you need all-season traction, lasting treadwear, or a quiet drive, General Tires are designed to deliver whatever life brings your way. From all-season ultra-high-performance tires for passenger cars and crossovers to extreme all-season mud terrain and tires for light trucks and SUVs, General Tire delivers great performance. To find your ideal tire, visit GeneralTire.com. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show. Are you looking for a place to push yourself behind the wheel and see how your driving skills stack up? Dirtfish Rally School is that place. Located on 315 acres of pristine automotive playground at the foot of the Cascade Mountains in Snoqualmie, Washington, right outside of Seattle, Dirtfish Rally School is a one-of-a-kind place where everyone from first-time drivers to seasoned professionals like Bucky Lassick and Antoine Lestage can push themselves to their limit. Whether driving the high-performance rally-prepped all-wheel drive Subaru Impreza STI is what you're looking for, or you'd rather hang it all out in the rear-wheel drive Subaru BRZs, Dirtfish Rally School has something for everyone. Classes are available from 2 hours to 3 full days and feature instructors with over 150 years of combined racing experience. Whether you're looking to become the best and get an edge on the competition, or just looking to freshen your skills behind the wheel, Dirtfish Rally School is the place to go. For more information on registering for classes, visit Dirtfish on the web at dirtfish.com, or to check out the latest happenings from Dirtfish, follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Dirtfish Rally.
Life is all about sound, the sound of sports, the sound at the racetrack, and the sound of your vehicle. Don't drive around listening to this. Drive around listening to the sound of performance. Gibson Performance. Gibson Performance Exhaust is the company who can turn this into this. Remember that life is all about sound, and Gibson Exhaust is the sound of performance. Check out your next catback exhaust system, headers, muffler, or UTV exhaust at GibsonPerformance.com and get more power and more sound.
Thanks for listening to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. Available online on SiriusXM on AM/FM networks across the U.S. and internationally on the American Forces Network. Head to JimBeaver15.com for all the details. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Chris Leone and Matt Kalish, and we are going to have our last major segment here. And this segment, we're going to switch gears here. We're going to talk, Chris brought this up a while back. We're not going to get into movies, but we got to dispel all the rumors. Die Hard, Christmas movie, yes or no? Chris, go.
Yes.
Matt.
No.
Oh, okay. I want to hear this reasoning. What do you got here, Matt?
Hashtag embrace debate.
So, I guess I'll start. what a Christmas movie is not about when the movie takes place. A Christmas movie is about themes in the movie. A Christmas movie is it's about loving spirit. It's about the holiday and the season. It's not like, don't get me wrong, I love Die Hard, but John McClane killing a bunch of guys, is that the holiday spirit? Like maybe in an episode of Futurama, but
is Krampus a Christmas movie?
No.
Krampus a Christmas movie? Krampus, is that a Christmas movie?
Yeah, because that is about holiday themes. It's just inverting them and twisting them, but it's still ultimately about the holiday. You can take Die Hard and remove everything that's Christmas about it. You can make it like, I don't know, a college graduation party, and Die Hard still works as Die Hard. Like what the party is doesn't matter to Die Hard.
I'm just imagining Bruce Willis being like 19 and having way more hair in this version of Die Hard. But I would almost argue by your definition of it, to me, I think you just outlined a definition where I don't feel like a Christmas story is really a Christmas movie. And granted, I hate on that movie all the time anyway, but
well, Home Alone's not a Christmas movie then, because the robbers could go to the house at any other time of the year. I mean, hell, they could be going on summer vacation and the kid could still be stuck at home. So
no, Home Alone is about a psychopath who could have called the police at any moment and chose not to.
I'm looking and I'm like, okay, any Hallmark movie ever made for Christmas is not a Christmas movie, because the girl that went to New York City and came home and fell in love with a baker, she could have come home any time of the year. It just happened that she came home at Christmas. So
no, but you see, Christmas was a very important holiday to her and her family, and the banker just doesn't understand that. So
Cinco de Mayo coming soon.
But I mean, Christmas, it brought Bruce Willis's family back together, Matt. You know, I mean,
yeah, but maybe Bruce Willis doesn't need to say ho ho ho, now I have a gun. Maybe he's got to say oh, now I've got an Easter egg. It's a grenade. The Easter egg's a grenade. What? That was also that was the Easter bunny eating a carrot. I feel like I gotta make that sound clear.
So my 14-year-old
onomatopoeia in the moment.
All right, so I've got one, and I'm a massive Tim Burton fan. My daughter asked me this the other day, and I actually drew blanks. She goes, "Dad, is Nightmare Before Christmas a Halloween movie or a Christmas movie?" I was like, "Shit, I really don't know." I'm like, both. I was like, I don't have an answer for you, Addie. You guys got anything for that one? Because I don't know how to answer the question.
No, because I don't really touch a lot of Tim Burton stuff. I just
so I know the answer that the Disney Corporation is going to give you.
Okay.
Because I actually just experienced this yesterday.
Okay.
You know the Haunted Mansion ride at Disneyland?
Yes.
That is currently completely rethemed to be Nightmare Before Christmas.
Okay.
So they have like Jack Skellington, and they got like the what's the dog's name? Zero,
yeah,
I think. They have them floating around in like Christmas hats, and they have put like holiday plants, holiday fixtures. They have pumpkins on a Christmas tree singing like spooky Christmas songs in the middle of this ride. Now it is intense and very enjoyable, but I feel like that's the answer straight from the horse's mouth, right?
Well, yeah, a little bit.
Well, so I know that this is going to go deep. So obviously they redecorated that for Christmas with the whole Jack Skellington theme. They also decorate all of Disneyland for Halloween. Does Nightmare Before Christmas have a presence at the Halloween decorated Disneyland and or the Haunted Mansion?
Oh, that's a good question. I do not know.
Yeah, and I don't either. So I'm going, Disney could be embracing both and be like, nope, this movie's both. So yeah. I don't know. We're just going to have to make a trip to Disneyland.
From Always Sunny, they're playing both sides.
Yeah, that's double the licensing potential. You know,
yeah.
I mean, would we really be surprised? That's all I'm saying.
No, well, Disney, they're going to do whatever makes them money. So, yeah. You know what, Matt?
When we 15, yeah,
when we become members of Club 33, that's a question we can ask Disney Direct. I'm sure that's the only way we're going to get the square answer.
Oh man, I'm gonna find Bob Iger and I'm gonna hand him a drink. I'm gonna say, Bob.
Oh,
it's Nightmare Before Christmas, a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie?
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Here's one. It would do best Christmas present you got as a kid and the shittiest Christmas gift any kid ever got. Worst toy or whatever. Doesn't matter if you got it or somebody else, but we'll shoot from there.
Well, I can tell you the one that probably reshaped my life, and that was the PlayStation 1 in 1998.
Okay, fair enough.
That was, I got Moto Racer and NASCAR 99 with it, and immediately discovered how much I hate the 2 joystick system in terms of gas, brake, and left, right.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to play Moto Racer with the D-pad, so I just didn't play it as a kid, because I wasn't a particularly coordinated kid. But played the crap out of NASCAR 99 and started a long-standing fascination with pretty much all kinds of video games, especially in the racing sphere. The PS1 is how I learned how football worked, because I got a copy of Madden 99, and learned plays and how the sport worked through that. Some of the other sports, and I was never a broader sports kid until then. Action sports, my embrace of action sports, the Tony Hawk games, really got me into that world. And I am still very good. Matt and I were in a chat on Facebook with some friends, and we were just talking about that earlier today, and somebody drug up a video of, hey, here are all the Tony Hawk ripoffs, and I'm like, don't you dare call Grind Session a ripoff, because that was a great game. The guy framing it that way was not acceptable.
I do have to give Tony Hawk a ton of credit, because prior to Tony, aside from 720, every action sports game of all time pretty much sucked. There was a couple, there was a good one for the NES. I can't remember what it was called, Skate or Die or something like that. It was okay, but there was some really, really garbage action sports games. There was one for PlayStation 1 called Extreme 3 or something like that, and gosh, there was some bad stuff. I give Tony Hawk a lot of credit, because he literally he created skateboarding fans, action sports fans, but he finally gave whatever discipline of action sports you participated in at least a legitimate action sports game. And then that engine got used for everything, wakeboarding, BMX. They licensed the hell out of that to any action sports athlete that would sign on the dotted line. So, I give Tony a lot of credit, just because their action sports video games were extremely lackluster prior to Tony Hawk.
Even Kelly Slater.
Yeah,
got a branded game.
Yeah, I had all of them too. I had Matt Hoffman. I had Kelly Slater. I had Sean Murray's Pro Wakeboarder. I had every single game built on that engine of Tony Hawk's.
And obviously, a lot of competitors. We all knew Dave Mira, and Dave had a couple of games there on the bikes. There were some decent other skateboarding games out there too. Like I said, Grind Session I will defend to the death. There are Tony Hawk games out there that I think are not as fun as Grind Session.
Well, there was Tony Hawk. There were some bad ones down along the way. First couple, 2 or 3 were good, and then they started to kind of tail off. You know what I mean? It was
Underground 2 that for me was the moment.
Yeah,
because the first Underground was unreal. There was nothing like that game. 4 set up a good foundation for it, and then Underground was the best. So I guess if you want to go further down the line, the year I got Underground was a pretty good Christmas too.
Yeah, 1 and 2 were great. 1 was unbelievable, and then 2 came out, and it allowed you to do everything you couldn't do in 1 that you didn't know you wanted to do. And so it was like, holy crap, 2 is amazing also, you know what I mean? And then, you know what I mean? Yeah. So there was a few there that were really good. 2 is the sequel that actually bested the original that you want to talk about, because the original was so good. But, it was one of those where, 2 is a sequel you didn't know you needed until you got it, and then you're like, holy crap, you can take the best and make it better. And you know what I mean? And to me, those 2 I have on the pedestal.
Yeah. No,
absolutely.
I got in it too, and this was the thing we were saying in that chat earlier today. because I got in it too, I cannot fathom a Tony Hawk game without manuals, so I can't play one.
Yeah.
I'm not any good at one. The reissue that they did, where you have all the one levels and you can do all the things you can do now, that opened up those levels and everything for me for one. But up until that point, when I went back to one after getting in when I did, it was just like, I can't do this. I'm not any good at this one.
Yeah. I don't know. So what how about you, Matt? What's good present?
So the good present, back when I was a kid, like mid-90s, I got gifted, it was like a 2-for-1 thing. I got the Lego Model Team Rally Van, which was like the coolest thing I could get as a kid. And I also got this Shell-branded Lego Formula One car. And for me, Chris knows this about me, but I'm a big-time Lego collector. I love like all the dumb Lego cars. I've got like the big stuff. Like I've got the IMSA cars. I've got some old like Technic Formula One cars. I have a bunch of stuff hanging on my walls, like anything they've done, like 8 scale, like 20th scale, even down to like the Speed Champion stuff. I'm all about that. And it kind of started with those first. It started with the Rally Van, and it started with this like Shell branded Ferrari Formula One car. Because before that, like Lego to me was, I got the Pirate set, and I got like the Deep Sea Explorer set, and it's like, okay, these are fun little toys. But when I realized that, I like cars, I like putting Legos together, I can do both of those at the same time, that kind of set off an obsession for multiple decades.
Yeah, I think for me, it's funny because we weren't given like big, like expensive Christmas gifts as a kid. Like it wasn't, you know what I mean. Christmas, you got some amazing stuff, but it wasn't like you were given these really expensive, exotic presents, stuff like that. But one year, I did get one. I got an 80cc quad, and I was a young kid, and it was a Suzuki little 2-stroke 80cc quad, kids quad, and I was super young. But it was one of those that it opened it gave me freedom. I was like, holy crap. Like I had some, friends that had quads or whatever, and I, it spent a little bit of time around them, but it was like, I never really knew how to ride or drive or do anything off-road. And it was like, I got that one Christmas morning, and that literally opened my eyes to freedom and off-road and everything else. And I literally burned the freaking wheels off of that for probably 5 years. I mean, I was very old before I could ever afford, or my family could ever afford, a bigger quad. So I was should have been on one, and I'm like this full-grown kid still riding around on an 80cc quad. So it was one of those where like I got so much use out of that, but it literally opened my eyes to the world of off-road. So that probably was one of those definitive gifts that kind of helped define the rest of my life. Probably one of the funniest things, I bring this up once in a while, I don't know if you guys remember, my brother got it. I didn't get it. I was too old for these things, but there was a company that made these things called Motocycles, and it was a bicycle that had all this motorcycle plastic around it. And it had a button that would rev a motorcycle engine on the handlebars of the bike. Well, it was so much plastic you could literally only turn the handlebars just barely, so you could barely steer the thing. And it was heavy, and it was top heavy. And my brother got this thing, and it was under the Christmas tree. And, I remember he got so excited. He was sitting there, and you hit the button and go, motorcycle, rum, 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 and rev the engine and everything. My brother was so freaking excited about this thing. So, he gets this thing, and we go out in the front yard, and he's so excited. I got a motorcycle. You know what I mean? I got a motorcycle. We go out there, and he goes in the driveway Christmas morning, and we learned real quick the thing couldn't steer because there was so much plastic, you could barely move the handlebars. He wadded that thing up, split himself open, bloody, bruised, everything else on Christmas morning because of this thing. And I started laughing. Well, one of the kids across the street got one. Literally, my brother does this. 20 minutes later, we're still out there picking my brother up or whatever. This kid from across the street gets this thing, and his parents wheel it out. He goes literally across the street. We watch watched the exact same thing happen with this other kid. So these motorcycles were like the hottest Christmas gift this one year. They literally were on the market like 2 months and I think recalled because every kid that got one ended up like with stitches and beat up. It was funny. And you pull up pictures of them and they still look badass today. I'm like, yeah, I understand why every kid wanted those. It was the worst gift ever because it wasn't if you crashed, it was when you crashed. And generally you crash within 30 seconds of riding it. And so my brother he didn't get a trip to the hospital on Christmas Day, but he's darn close. And every kid in the neighborhood that got one, pretty much the same story.
Oh man, that's absolutely amazing. I honestly, it kind of feels like that's almost on theme with what our best gifts are too, because it kind of feels like all of us said some variation of this gift ended up being an experience or this foundational thing to something I still love as an adult.
Yeah.
And that's really the best thing, because it's one thing if it's like, oh, I got like an action figure that lived in my toy box for 10 years and then I threw it away. It's another thing when you have a story like that, Jim, where you got this awesome gift and it ended in a bloody mess.
Yeah, and it's funny. Like my brother, it's funny when you ask him about it. And it's funny because he tried riding it a couple times after that, and he crashed. He would do it very slow, and he just literally, it was a defective bicycle, and it looked amazing. And my parents, like a month and a half in, my parents like, you can't have this, you know what I mean? And my brother, they ended up buying him another bicycle, and my dad's like, oh, we can sell it. My mom's like, no, and they literally hauled it to the dump. And, you know what I mean? And then literally a couple months later, I think they were recalled and gave refunds or whatever. My mom and dad were like, we can't sell this in good faith to any other family because their kid's going to get screwed up.
No, exactly. It's a display piece, if anything.
Yeah, but I still wish we had it because that thing, you look on eBay and stuff, those things are bringing a mint, the people that still have them, because it was just literally, it was like a very small run that they made them. But I remember getting an original Nintendo and NES, and this was the original ones when they first released in the States. Didn't have the zapper gun. It was literally Mario only cartridge. It wasn't the Mario / Duck Hunt. I had one of the original Nintendos. I didn't even know what a Nintendo was. I didn't know what video games were, nothing. And somehow under the tree, that was under the tree that year. And open it up, I'm like, what is this? I didn't even know what the hell it was at that point. You know what I mean? I wasn't exposed to video games, whatever, maybe a few in arcades, something like that. And I remember opening it up, and that, I mean, I play video games with my daughter a lot. I mean, I still read video game news. I log on to IGN daily and see video. I don't get to play hardly ever. I buy a lot of games, I just never get to play them. But that was kind of a moment that opened up my eyes to the world of video games. And after that, it was all over. You know, it's like ended up getting a Super Nintendo, and then I bought my PlayStation 1. I got a PlayStation 2 for Christmas the year they came out, and that's a funny story with my mom, you know, tracking that down. It was almost like a drug deal she did in a parking lot out of somebody's trunk that had a bunch of PlayStation 2s. But, I mean, still this day, I mean, got a Xbox One X and 2 Nintendo Switches at the house, you know, and my daughter and I play and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, that original Nintendo opened up my eyes to the world of Nintendo. And I remember that movie, The Wizard, that came out and how groundbreaking that was for us kids. And I remember every time I'd save up enough money, I'd go, we had an auto parts store of all things that used to sell video games in town because we didn't have any other place to buy them. Or I'd get to go to the big city and go to a Toys R Us or a Target and get to go to the video game aisle, and I'd save money like crazy, you know, to be able to buy one cartridge, you know. And I remember you could rent Nintendo games as a kid at the local video store, and it was $3.99 to rent a game, and you got to rent it for 24 hours. So you'd rent something like Legend of Zelda and have 24 hours to play it, you know what I mean? And then you had to take it back, or it was another $4, you know, and stuff like that. But, man, there was a period there in my life as a kid where every last cent was saved for video games, all because I got that Nintendo that one year at Christmas, and it just opened my eyes to the world of video games.
Oh man, that's how they get you. It got really dangerous at one point because when I was growing up, I did the same thing. Like there was a Blockbuster, like a 20-minute walk from where I grew up. So I used to do that, spend the money, rent a game for a few days or a week, figure out, like, try to beat it, whatever. But then GameFly became a thing.
Yep.
It was like Netflix, but for video game discs. They would literally send them to you in the mail, and you could keep them for as long as you want because it was just a subscription fee. Pretty sure I bought something. It might have been like the first Gears of War or something. Oh no, sorry, it was Mass Effect. It was the first Mass Effect.
I love the
game.
Mass Effect series.
And that I held on to that for like 4 or 5 months. It took me to beat that game the first time around, like 100% it, go to every planet, find the monkeys, do all of it. But I'm pretty sure with the amount of time I had that game, I had paid for it at least once over in subscription fees to have it. So that stuff.
I forgot about
it added
GameFly.
up quick.
I forgot about GameFly. I totally spaced that. They were ahead of their time. They really were. With their subscription model and stuff like that. Then, I remember when Netflix came out, and it was the same thing. Where Netflix was kind of the same thing, but it was like the ship movies. Everybody thinks Netflix now, the streaming. I'm like, geez, when Netflix came out, it was just mailing movies back and forth.
Yeah, they still do that too.
Do they still have that business?
Still get movies mailed from Netflix. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's hard. It actually made searching their library very annoying for a long time. Because you would search for a movie on Netflix and they would be like, yeah, we have this. You'd say, great, let me stream it. Nope, DVD only. It was very hard to kind of parse.
I do remember that because that's when I
tonight.
first got into Netflix streaming. And there was, I remember that. But I didn't know you could still actually physically have movies mailed. So
I think you can, yeah, because it's all license free. Or rather, they don't have to.
Well, there's still a market for it because I don't know where you guys live, but here there's Red Boxes all over town. There's still Red Boxes where people rent those. The Walmart's got one there, the Safeway's got one. So there's still Red Boxes here. So I mean, physical discs. I mean, that's still definitely a thing. I mean, I'm weird with video games. I don't like buying the digital copy. I like going to the game store, whatever, and buying the physical. The physical cartridge or disc or whatever. Like, I'm still that way. Like, I would rather have a tangible disc and case in my hand than just download it off, off Xbox or Nintendo or whatever,
Yeah, it almost feels like there's a permanence when you have a disc that you don't get for a digital download. Chris and I, we were talking maybe a week ago. R Factor 2 is a game that's been around forever. It's like a competitor to like iRacing or Assetto Corsa. It's one of those.
Yeah, R Factor's been around for years.
Yeah. I'm actually pretty sure like a lot of professional sims are built off of modded copies of R Factor. I think that's a thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, so R Factor's been around for so long that a lot of their original licenses are starting to expire. Like R Factor lost Silverstone like 2 weeks ago. It's just the license expired, so they deleted it from the game. You can't race at Silverstone anymore on a completely vanilla copy of R Factor 2. It's
wow.
That's not a future that I want, but with digital only, it's easy for them to do that.
Yeah, and there are a number of gaming products in our sphere that have done that. There are a couple of games that I had to buy recently that I had to go track down disc copies for on the PS4 because there was no way to purchase them digitally anymore, but I knew the discs existed. Have the discs, it's installed. Some of them still have leaderboards, but yeah, they are inaccessible through the store for whatever reasons. It's not ideal. It's suboptimal. It's the same thing that happens with all the things that have been getting delisted from streaming platforms. And, with the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, obviously, there has been a huge uproar, especially about animation with that, with HBO Max, with a ton of shows just, getting, Thanos snapped just out of existence because there's no other way to get to them.
They pulled Westworld.
Well, I was just going to bring Westworld up. I watched the first 2 seasons, and then I went back and I was like, I know it ended, and I was like, I need to finish off this series, because it was one of those where season 1 was awesome. Season 2 kind of lost me a little bit, but I'm like, it was still enough where I want to finish off this series. And now I can. I got to go literally locate the DVD copy somewhere.
Yeah, and what's especially insane about that is Westworld, the 4th season, it only ended a couple months ago.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. It's like the whole value proposition of HBO Max when that first, back then it was HBO Go, but when that first came out, the idea was, yeah, you have everything you've ever made in syndication whenever I want it. Like, if it's 2035 and I want to go watch The Sopranos, I can go and do that. But now
I've gone back and watched Band of Brothers, and how long ago did that come out? 20 years ago? It's still an amazing series. And
that's 20 years ago, and it holds up. It's fantastic. But that's kind of the point. It's like, what are they going to pull next just because they got bought out by a company that's in financial troubles? It's incredible to me that it feels like we're tanking multiple companies just because one was having issues. I just don't understand any of it.
Yeah, I don't either. The streaming rights and digital rights is completely different than the way things used to be with tangible assets. Completely agree. It's going to be interesting. And that's the thing. Once you buy something and you pay, say it's a copy and you buy it on, I have Apple TV. So say I buy a copy of a movie for $15 on Apple TV, and I bought the digital copy of it. At some point, can they just snap their fingers and it go poof, gone? And I know
they can.
Yeah, and I know Nintendo people have been pissed, because there's, with their virtual console and things like that. People bought it on the Nintendo Wii, and then they turned around and they bought it on the, the Wii U, and now the Switch, and they've had to buy it 3 times. It's like, once you bought a copy of Mario Brothers, why doesn't it transfer to all the future Nintendo consoles? Why is it still tied to that one?
Yeah, it's because they want your money. It's that simple. But it's wild too, because there are some games where I've bought physical copies of games where I open the box, like a PC game where I've opened the box and there's no disc inside. There's just a note saying, "Here's your code. Go download it on Steam."
Here's your code.
I just
then why did you build the box?
Right. It's just to look pretty on my shelf, which, don't get me wrong, that's kind of a motivation for me for owning physical media. I like having my bookshelf. I like having my DVD shelf.
Yeah.
But
I did go off and sell. I had a DVD collection that was it was probably at one point 400 deep. And I ended up selling off the DVD collection at a yard sale for like $3 or $4 a piece. This is a couple of years ago. I was just like, yeah, this is bananas. It got to the point where it was just a nuisance. I think I kept 100 DVDs. There were just certain things, but I was like, yeah, this is bananas. It got to be too cumbersome, too much.
Oh, it definitely does that. And I've done the same thing. I've downsized my collection. I don't own every PS2 game I did when I was a kid. Like, I don't own the SOCOM series anymore. I used to own all those games. But the favorites, I've kept the favorites around. Yeah. But I don't know. It's just there's something about holding a tangible item that you just don't get that feeling if my entire interaction with a game to start it up is to just click go on Steam. Like, it's just different.
Yeah, I miss blowing in the cartridge and slapping my Nintendo Entertainment System around and banging the cartridge and pushing it in and out, up and down, and hitting the power button 35 times.
I don't miss CD supremacy over cartridge media forever.
Yeah. Well, in Nintendo's defense, they figured out all the cartridges since then. I mean, Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 didn't have that. The original Nintendo, that thing was so bad. I had cartridges you could put in, and you had to slide it in and then push it down, right? I had certain cartridges that wouldn't work with it pushed down. You literally had to pop it back up where you were pulling the cartridge out, and it would work. And I'm going, What planet? It like literally that. I don't know. I in this day and age, Nintendo would have had to recall the NES 100 times over for so many problems. But because it was the 80s, they got away with it, and people didn't want to. They were so addicted to video games, they didn't want to send it in because, gosh, it would have been a 30-day turnaround or something. I can't live without my Nintendo for 30 days.
No, exactly. I mean,
that was in the days of mail order too.
Well, you guys have been downsizing on the physical media. I've actually been increasing because everything's so cheap now. And I very much just kind of operate in about a 20-year media sphere where a lot of the stuff that comes out nowadays, I just don't care. You know, I like the things that I have always liked, quite frankly. And, you know, it's not that hard to find them on DVD at like a Savers for $2. And then I bring it home and then, bam, I got it, you know. I got to be smart about space with it sometimes, so sometimes things just kind of get chucked up in the attic and whatever, but I'm like, you know what? I have all these things. I've got them all organized. Like, you know,
I'm just putting it out there. 70 years from now, when Chris Leone dies, and I'm hoping you're 100 when you die, Chris. They're gonna have one hell of an estate sale at Chris's place.
It is gonna be a party.
Between the Hot Wheels and the video games, yes, like there's going to be some money there at the Leone estate.
Yeah, the North American Diecast Museum. I need to print out the shirts.
Oh Lord. All right, we are going to take a short commercial break. We'll come back, wrap things up here on the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. When it's time to replace the tires on your vehicle, General Tire delivers the tires you need for both your next big adventure and your daily commute. Whether you need all-season traction, lasting tread wear, or a quiet drive, General Tires are designed to deliver whatever life brings your way. From all-season ultra-high-performance tires for passenger cars and crossovers to extreme all-season mud terrain and tires for light trucks and SUVs, General Tire delivers great performance. To find your ideal tire, visit GeneralTire.com. General Tire, official tire of the Jim Beaver Show.
Conditions off the pavement are always changing, so why settle for a light bar that just turns on and off? The Rigid Adapt is a revolutionary new light bar that will automatically select from 8 beam patterns that range from a widespread 90-degree flood to a 15-degree spot based on your vehicle's speed. Try that with your knockoff light bar. A dash-mounted controller allows the user to toggle between adaptive mode, beam patterns, and RGBW accent lighting. With Adapt, it's easier than ever to own the night.
Don't just shred your way through any off-road rugged terrain. Get into gear with GSP XTV and let us redefine your adventure. The GSP advantage of quality and performance sets a standard for UTV axles. We strive to provide premium ATV and UTV axles to keep you shreddy ready. Kick up some dirt and get in the driver's seat with GSP XTV. With over 35 years of experience, drive with a company you can trust. Drive with GSP. For more information, please visit us at gspxtv.com today. Social media? Yeah, we've got that. Jim Beaver 15 on all major platforms and Jim Beaver Show, JB15 Group, and B Cardone 15 on the gram. Welcome back to the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. Chris Leone, Matt Kalish joining me here. Time to wrap things up. Like I said, check out JimBeaver15.com, social media channels. We got the awesome feature with the Speed Freaks we're dropping next week. That will be at the top of our feeds over the holidays. Big thanks to General Tire, Vision Wheel, Dirtfish Rally School, Rigid Industries, iRacing, Gibson Exhaust, GSPX TV Axles, all of our amazing partners here in the show, Kawasaki for coming on board. And, thanks, Matt and Chris, for taking the time to do this holiday thing. Thanks for everything you guys have done for JB15 the past year, and looking forward to next year, guys.
Definitely. We'll have to do this again next year and talk about all the good, bad, and ugly gifts that we got this year.
Oh, absolutely. This was a ton of fun, Jim.
Yeah. The one thing I asked for this year, and for some odd reason, I don't know if you guys have been getting the ads on Facebook, but they've got this thing called Big Blanket, and it's like a 10 by 10 thick-ass huge blanket. And for some odd reason, it's so absurdly large that I wanted one. So I don't know if you've seen the ads for that, but I sure have been spammed with them.
No, not yet, but I'm sure that now that that's come out of my speakers that I will.
Yeah, Big Brother always listening. The funny thing is it'll probably never get used. It's so big, it's like tent sized. Like it's a 10 by 10 blanket. I have a feeling that my daughter's going to take it and she's just going to build pillow forts with it because it's literally, you don't need a bunch of blankets. You just need one. It's 10 foot by 10 foot. So
I mean, hey, that's still a use, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. I don't even know that I'm getting one. That's what I asked for. So we'll see what happens here. But yeah, thank you guys for doing the show. And yeah, we're signing off here from the General Tire Jim Beaver Show. And I can't say 2022 because we still do have some shows to come. But yeah, signing off from this episode. That's a wrap for this edition of the General Tire Jim Beaver Show with Brittany Cardone. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and follow Jim Beaver 15, B Cardone 15, and Jim Beaver Show on social media. We're also on the web. Hit us up at jimbeaver15.com for all the latest. We'll see you next time.